Hello everybody, my name is Stuart. I run multiple businesses from Southeast Asia, and with everything going on with AI, automation, etc., I figured now would be the time that I want to make a channel where I just sort of talk about some of the things that I'm doing with AI, some of the things that I'm doing with all of this automation, and how it can be applied to different areas of business and different areas of life. So I've been going down the rabbit hole of vibe coding lately. This is using tools like Bolt, Lovable, Cursor, Windsurf, and that sort of thing, and being able to put products together. Now, I've always been pretty good at using these automation tools like Zapier, Make, N8N, self-hosting some stuff, doing a little bit of things in the terminal, but I've all sort of seen myself as a no-code type person. I've learned Bubble, I've made applications with Bubble and made a bunch of interesting things, but I've never dug deep into GitHub or creating my own products with code. So with everything going on with AI, that has changed recently. Found myself building more and more things, sort of bringing some ideas to life, creating some internal sort of tools which are very helpful, and I wanted to share some of that journey with you. Today, let's look at something that I've been creating for myself, which is like a hotel and resort template that I can then use to produce highly effective SEO optimized websites for different hotels and resorts, which will work on a request to book setting. Now, I wanted this because one of my businesses deals with hotels and resorts, and we do marketing in terms of putting these properties and advertising them on unconventional platforms like Airbnb and short-term rental channels. We can help the owners or the managers of these properties get more bookings because they aren't traditionally advertising on these platforms. These platforms have a lot of back and forth with the customer. It's not usually a quick booking experience, and the customers tend to be a bit more needy as well. So we can bridge the gap, the language gap in Southeast Asia, and we can handle all of that process. So it turns these guests and that process and that experience for the owner or the manager into a traditional hotel. Here is your booking, here's the guest arriving type experience. Whereas we deal with all of the nonsense and additional work that goes on in the background to do that. And I figured, what if we can offer these guys other services like a website, which is another funnel to get customers in the door, because a lot of these places are not very well advertised online. They don't have a web presence, and they tend to rely on the big channels, be that booking.com, etc., or word of mouth, and people arriving on at the pier and sort of realizing they need to get somewhere to stay, and then they look for the accommodation last minute and they'll book through that sort of method. So if we can create a website, then we can control the guest experience better by ranking highly in SEO and then getting the customer through the door that way, which will feed into everything that we're doing, but also benefit obviously the owner by getting more bookings that way. So let's have a look at something that I created now. So this is a GitHub page for Wanderlust Haven template, which I've created sort of using bolt.new primarily. And we'll just go over the README, which I had AI help me to produce as well. And one of the things that you'll probably notice if you've been creating projects with AI and AI coding is it could be very difficult to get the SEO optimization for the different pages. And then even if you do manage this, you find that everything is sort of not dynamic. If you go from the homepage to the about page, or the different routing on your project will either be static SEO, it will show the same on the social share previews that you might use, which isn't ideal. Obviously, if you're going to be sharing a room of a resort, you'd want the room to show on the social share so people know, oh cool, we're looking at the penthouse suite or similar type stuff, right? So this can be a real headache to create, because if you're knee deep in a project and you've been hammering the tokens and you have a bunch of stuff that's to then get this correct, you can use millions of tokens and get frustrated and sort of not get it working as you want it to do. Now, there is some tricks to do this with sort of Cloudflare workers and doing it on a sort of back-end process, but we're not going to go over that in this video. In this video, it's going to be more of just sort of saying, hey, look, this is what we have, and this is some of the systems that we have within this template that I've created. So we've got a responsive design that works great, smooth animations, dark mode support, interactive booking system with seasonal pricing. Now, I've built this template for myself, so I'm looking for something where there is seasonal pricing, so we can set a low season price, a high season price, a peak season price, where we can show the image galleries for the different rooms, accessible components. So if we want to edit it and do what we want to do, it's very easy to do that. We then go into some of the optimizations that we've done with this build. So it's using a Next.js 13 app router, the server-side rendering for optimal performance, and I'll pretend that I know what's going on here, but really, I don't really care so much about a lot of the language and what is actually going on. What I care about is, does it work? Is it going to provide a fast experience? And are the page loads fast? And ultimately, the answer to that is yes. But from my limited code understanding, what I do know is that we have a static site generation. So the static site generation means that everything is loaded sort of instantly when the site is loaded, which is cool, which is what you want for something like this, because there's not a lot of data on it, there's not a lot of files and heavy file size loading. It's like text, and that's pretty much it, and everything else we're going to be loading from elsewhere. So there doesn't need to be a massive amount of dynamic loading of data, because we're getting the data from elsewhere, and it's super easy. So minimal bundle size with tree shaking, no idea what that is. So then we get into the fun stuff, right? So the SEO stuff is what we wanted to really talk about. Meta tags for all pages, open graph tags for social sharing, structured data for rich snippets, sitemap XML, robots text, SEO friendly URLs. Technical stack, again, stuff that doesn't really matter. Getting started, this doesn't really matter, because we'll just be forking it and then sort of building it again in Bolt and then creating a new page based on that. Seasonal pricing goes into a bit on how to edit this, so we know what file to update and we know what we're doing here. The contact information, the images, using pixel image placeholders, we can replace that with images that we are hosting on our own backend. I'll probably do another video on my vibe coded project management system, which is pretty cool actually, because it lets us upload images, it lets us quickly copy the URLs for those uploaded images and then paste them into Bolt on different projects that we're working on. So then we just go over the form. There are two forms on this, with a sort of, we're just simulating a successful call at the moment. When we want to actually put this live, we will be putting like an API request on each of these, so that once the booking form or the contact form is working, it will send the data where we need it to through a webhook, and then we can hook that up with Zapier, Make, N8N, or whatever backend we want to use to actually get those messages to where we need to do them. And then we're just saying the colors can be updated, the typography can be updated, and then we go more into this. So one of the things that is kind of cool with all of this vibe coding stuff is that you can actually create the project, you can sync it up to your GitHub, and then from that you can say, hey, now we've got this project, create a README page with everything that needs to be done for this template. So whilst this template is internal for me right now, I'm still considering whether to make it public or not, or whether we just use it internally as a place for us to have these files ready to go. So that's everything with the GitHub repository. What I will do now is I'll go over to the actual templated page so we can see how that looks as well. So this is a live page currently on Netlify, which is Wanderlust Haven. So this is our template. We scroll down, we see, you know, it's a nice design. It's a modern design. We've got some nice icons: why choose, book your stay, explore the rooms, etc. Accommodation for every traveler. We click and it's going to change the images. You've got the explore facilities. So you can see if they've got like a pool or a gym or whatever. Then we have the guest testimonials, saying why you like it, what it was good, and then a book and a basic sort of footer at the bottom here. So one of the things that's really great about building a static site like this, and what you'll find compared to a site that you build on sort of WordPress or Squarespace or any of these other tools, is how fast it is, right? Like you see, I'm clicking and I'm getting instant responses based on the different pages. Now, Squarespace, WordPress will not be able to match the speed of doing something like this. So the about page, we've got our story. Again, it's just dummy text that AI has created, but you'll be able to edit this very, very easily with just by forking this and putting it in bold and then creating some actual relevant text based on the property that we need. And then we come into the Our Rooms page and you'll see that we have details of a specific room. Got the social dorm, the private room, and then we have the eco suite. You'll notice that these are single images for now, but for those which are the multiple images, we can navigate and we are going to get the different images showing here. So it takes a little bit of time for these images to load as you do cycle through, but once they are all loaded, then the navigation is nice and quick. We then get into additional information that we can set. And if I wanted to book any of these, then I could just go and do the booking flow super easily, which is quite nice. If you come into the booking flow, we can set a check-in date, and this is optimized. So if I hit July here, it's going to open July on the checkout date, and then it's going to show me the price. I can change the guest count and name it. I could put a email in. I can put a phone number in, 4444444. I can put some special request in if I want to. Then I need to do this to stop the spam, and I hit request booking, and I'm going to get this booking confirmed. And then if I was to set this up properly, then I would obviously make sure it's sending the API and it's got our booking confirmed and it's got payment method to be arranged. Now, me setting up this template for myself, I wanted it to be working as a request to book. So this would send the details to the receptionist or to whoever, and then they would check the availability. Then they'd send an email back saying, hey, yes, we've got it. Please send payment to X. They can send a Stripe link. They could send whatever, and that would confirm the booking like that. So that's pretty cool. The facilities page, again, pretty nice. Just going over some basic stuff. I just love the speed, right? The speed is what really makes it for me. Then we have a location page because some of these properties are harder to find than others. We have some dummy nearby attractions nearby. And then finally, we have a contact page. So again, if we want to fill in details, we can do so. Let me just do that now. And again, we have the verify you're human. So we could do that. 7+3. Why did I put 13? It's a bit of a wrong one. And I can hit send on here. And you'll see that we get this message sent, blah, 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 blah. So the whole idea of this was to create something that was quick, right? So that's what we wanted to do, and something that's reusable. I think one of the biggest changes and one of the most revolutionary things that's going to come from all of this AI coding is that you can knock up these templates for any industry, right? So for me, who needs something for hotels and resorts, now I've got this template. Every time that I want to do a hotel or resort project, I can simply fork this template, open it up in bolt.new, and quickly change the pages to what I need. And based on that, I'll be able to change the text to what I need, and I'll be able to do some very simple design changes based on the template to make each resort or hotel site look unique. And there's nothing stopping you from doing this for, say, lawyer templates, for dentist templates, for plumbers, builders, handymen, gardeners, dog walkers, etc., etc. So I think what you'll find is that there's going to be a massive shift in how people work and how people offer these types of services, because ultimately you can spend a day creating a template like this and then you can reuse it multiple times, and it's going to help to bring the cost of web development down massively, or you can be greedy and it's going to increase your profits massively. And once you have this, you can deploy the site on Netlify or Vercel or wherever, and you're getting a super cheap hosting of a website that would have been more expensive if you were using more traditional sort of conventional web hosting for WordPress sites or Squarespace sites, or these closed ecosystems. And what's great about all of this as well is you've got a fully coded, fully optimized solution that you have full control over. There's no sort of risk involved in, oh, I've got this with Wix or I've got this with Squarespace. What happens if they go bust? What happens if they want to increase their pricing next year? How am I going to pass that on to the client, etc., etc.? You control everything by doing something like this. So yeah, anyway, I've been yapping a lot, and I figure this video may be useful for some people. It might not be useful for others, but I just wanted to share some of the things that I'm building, some of the things that I'm doing, and some of the things that I am thinking about. So again, if you found this useful, then please consider subscribing. I will be going into more details on some back-end processes which are a little bit different, because ultimately one of the things that you'll notice with a template like this is, how do I then get my images into it, and how can I do that easily in the most efficient way? So I think that one of the ways to show that will be to show you a bit of my project management system that we've built with Vibe Coding Tools, which took me about an hour, and the amount of value that we've got from it is pretty incredible. So I'll make a video on that, and then I'll explain why I like to host images like that. So they're going into like either R2 storage, which is dirt cheap, or going into our backend storage, and why you may have a shock if you want to put them in the actual project, because that's how you can get on the wrong side of a hefty Vercel bill or a hefty Netlify bill. And we want to do things in the most optimized, cheapest way, because we like to save money at the end of the day. So I'll leave it there. That's all I've got to say today. But yeah, I hope this video has brought you some value. Thank you.